Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the English Daily Book Summary YouTube channel. In order to not stop learning, listen to an English book summary every day for free.
Marty Klein, Sexual Intelligence. What we really want from sex and how to get it. You light the candles, put on music, maybe even read a few expert tips beforehand. Yet somehow, sex still feels more like pressure than pleasure. You find yourself wondering if you're doing it right, if your body looks okay, or if your partner is secretly bored. Instead of connection, there's self-consciousness. Instead of freedom, there's comparison. Sound familiar? That's the quiet reality for many people. Despite all the books, podcasts, and pop culture advice, sex often still feels like a performance. We chase confidence by memorizing moves or comparing ourselves to some ideal. But what if the key to great sex isn't in trying harder, but in thinking differently? This blink to Marty Klein's Sexual Intelligence presents a radical but refreshingly grounded idea. Better sex comes not from mastering techniques, but from understanding ourselves. It shifts the focus away from what sex should look like and toward what sex actually feels like, emotionally, physically, and relationally. Are you ready to ditch the rules, let go of shame, and learn how to be present and real? Let's get started. Normality is overrated when it comes to sex. Lots of us worry about whether our sex lives are normal. We ask therapists questions like, is once a month enough? Or is it weird that I like this? Often, these questions are about reassurance, but underneath them is a deeper anxiety, the fear of not measuring up. The truth is, ideas about what's normal, how often, how long, how intense, create more pressure than they solve. And they're based on statistics that don't actually reflect anyone's unique experience. Trying to match some imagined sexual average distracts from what's actually important. Sex isn't a math problem. What matters is how it feels. People often worry about how many times they've had sex or whether they're turned on by the right things. But numbers don't reveal whether you feel safe, free, and present during intimacy. They can't tell you if you're able to express what you like or if you feel close to your partner when you're together. Focusing on performance or comparison blocks connection. And when people feel disconnected, they often double down on trying to fix their sex lives through tips, techniques, or routines. But most traditional advice doesn't get to the heart of the issue. It tells you how to act more normal, not how to understand yourself better. It rarely asks what kind of sex you actually like, or what builds trust, or how to talk honestly about needs and limits. This is where a new approach helps, one that focuses on sexual intelligence. That means paying attention to your inner world, your emotions, your desires, your blocks, and sharing those with your partner. It means shifting from what should I be doing to what actually feels right for me. It means being less concerned with what turns most people on and more curious about what turns you on and what helps you feel safe enough to let go. This way of thinking invites honesty, presence, and acceptance. It takes the pressure off. You don't have to live up to anyone else's idea of sex, not your friends, not your partners, not society's. You just have to be real with yourself and with the person you're with. So instead of chasing normal, chase authenticity. Let go of the numbers. Stop worrying about what everyone else is doing. Start asking what brings you closer to yourself and what helps you feel close to someone else. That's where satisfying, anxiety-free sex lives and real intimacy actually begin. The skills you need for enjoyable sex aren't specifically sexual. Imagine waking up in a foreign city without a plan, not knowing the language, with only a little of the local currency in your pocket. You need more than facts to get by. You need adaptability, creativity, emotional balance, and curiosity. That's what intelligence really looks like. And the same idea applies to sex. Great sex isn't about flawless performance or knowing the hottest tricks. It's about how we respond when things don't go smoothly. When someone loses their erection, someone needs to pee, or the mood suddenly shifts. It's about flexibility, communication, and a sense of humor. This sexual intelligence is the emotional and relational foundation that allows for satisfying, low-pressure intimacy, even when conditions aren't ideal. Many people think that being sexually confident means being highly skilled, having a youthful body, or knowing secret techniques. But those things aren't what sustain desire or build true connection. What really matters is self-awareness, empathy, emotional maturity, and the ability to navigate awkward or imperfect moments with kindness and honesty. Sexual intelligence means understanding your own body and your partner's body, not just in a mechanical way, but in a way that honors how people change over time. It's knowing how back pain or hormonal shifts might affect desire or comfort. It's recognizing that preferences evolve and that touch, communication, and pacing all matter more than performance. True sexual satisfaction comes from emotional readiness, the ability to be open, present, and responsive. It comes from being able to ask for what you need, to express when something isn't working, and to stay connected even when things get messy. That's why emotional skills matter so much. They're the fuel for satisfying sex, in the same way that gasoline, not dollar bills, powers a car. And here's the truth. Most people don't want sex to be just about physical pleasure. They want connection, meaning, and closeness. These experiences require trust, boundaries, curiosity, and presence. None of that comes from chasing what's normal or trying to impress. It comes from showing up as your real self. Letting go of the pressure to be perfect opens the door to a more relaxed and joyful relationship with sex. Sexual intelligence isn't about knowing it all. It's about being willing to keep learning, to stay curious, and to be available. That's what creates sex that feels good, not just physically, but emotionally and relationally too. If you want to have better sex, stop obsessing over intercourse. A common obstacle to a more relaxed, satisfying sex life is the idea that real sex equals penis in vagina intercourse. This narrow definition turns sex into a checklist rather than an exploration. It creates pressure, encourages performance anxiety, and distracts from genuine pleasure. And it limits how we define success in the bedroom. Intercourse, while meaningful for some, isn't the most reliable or enjoyable option for everyone. It requires an erection, carries the risk of pregnancy, and often doesn't align with how most women experience pleasure. It can even become painful with age. Still, many people feel that anything less than intercourse is second-rate, just a warm-up or a fallback. This mindset creates a rigid view of what sex should look like and pushes people to chase a goal instead of enjoying the moment. Sex becomes more freeing and often more satisfying when we let go of this hierarchy. If we stop assuming that all sexual encounters need to end in intercourse, we open up space for playfulness and ease. Pleasure becomes about exploration, not completion. Activities like oral sex, mutual touch, or even a long sensual massage can be equally intimate and enjoyable. They don't have to be a means to an end. They can be the experience. This isn't just about changing behaviors, it's a shift in mindset. Many people rank sexual acts, placing intercourse at the top, followed by other genital contact, then masturbation, and finally, non-genital touch. This ranking system creates anxiety and self-judgment. It causes people to feel that some experiences don't count, and it pressures them to do things they may not even enjoy, simply because they seem more valid. It also introduces unnecessary conflict between partners, especially if they don't agree on what each activity means emotionally or symbolically. But sex is personal. What matters is whether an activity brings you pleasure, not where it lands on some imaginary ladder. There's no universal formula. You might prefer something simple and affectionate over something intense and technical. And that's okay. When we let go of sexual hierarchies, we reduce shame, anxiety, and the fear of dysfunction. We stop chasing what sex is supposed to look like and start asking what actually feels good. There's no need to fit your desires into a mold. Instead, get curious. Discover what excites you. Share it. Ask for it. Real sexual confidence is about doing what's true for you. Sexy means what you want it to mean. Lots of folks struggle with sex not because of what they do in bed, but because of how they think about themselves. One of the biggest blocks to confidence and enjoyment is trying to live up to someone else's definition of sexy, masculine, feminine, or desirable. These definitions often come from media, outdated norms, or old stories we've told ourselves for years. And the problem with these definitions? They usually leave us out. It's common to believe that real men act one way, real women look another, and that great lovers behave like they do in movies or porn. But if your version of sexy excludes who you are, your body, your personality, your preferences, it's not serving you. It's like setting the rules of a game in a way that guarantees you'll lose. Why not rewrite the rules so they include you? Sexual confidence starts with ownership. You don't need to fit into someone else's mold to be sexy. You can decide that your version of caring, sensuality, or desire is valid. You can decide that bringing your partner a blanket, using lube without hesitation, or laughing during sex is erotic. It might not look like a magazine ad, but it can feel deeply intimate and satisfying. Trying to squeeze into narrow images of masculinity or femininity, images that shift every few years anyway, leads to frustration. It turns sex into a performance instead of a connection. Expanding your definitions creates space for your real self to show up. You don't need to abandon everything you've admired. Just make space for your reality alongside the fantasy. Small, thoughtful gestures can be just as hot as bold moves. Knowing how your partner likes to be touched, bringing snacks to bed, or cleaning up with care after sex, these things can be deeply erotic because they're based on attention and trust. At the end of the day, sex isn't about matching someone else's idea of hotness. It's about creating meaning and pleasure with your partner. And that begins with believing that you belong in your own definition of sexy. If you're waiting for someone else to give you permission to feel good about yourself, you'll always be chasing it. So don't ask if you qualify. Decide that you do. Make your definition of sexy big enough to include everything you are. There's nothing stopping you except the old rules you're still playing by. Let them go. They were never written for you anyway. Sex can be enjoyable whatever stage of life you're in. When do people reach their sexual peak? There's no universal answer, but that doesn't stop us fretting whether it'll be too early, too late, or if it'll line up with our partners. In truth, the entire concept is more complicated and more flexible than we've been led to believe. If we define sexual peak as physical performance, harder erections, faster arousal, or more frequent desire, then yes, many men might peak in their late teens and many women around their mid-30s. But that's just one definition. It leaves out everything that makes sex meaningful, pleasurable, and emotionally rich. Sexual peak could also mean the stage of life when sex feels the most fulfilling. That might be when someone has the most confidence, the best communication, or the deepest connection with a partner. It could be when sex brings the most comfort during hard times, or when someone feels the freest to explore and express who they are. It might even be when they stop comparing themselves to some cultural ideal and finally start enjoying their body as it is. This is a lot like sports. Sure, most professional athletes perform their best in their 20s or early 30s when their bodies are at peak speed and strength. But ask athletes in their 40s and 50s and 60s who still love playing, and they'll often say they enjoy the game more now. They're not as fast or strong, but they know the game better. They refine their skills, and they play for the joy of it, not just the win. That's a different kind of peak. The same applies to sex. Some people may have had more raw physical energy when they were younger. But with age often comes self-awareness, emotional depth, and the freedom to enjoy sex without pressure. Many people find that they're better lovers later in life, not despite getting older, but because they've learned what matters most to them. And if you're still enjoying sex on your own terms in your own way, then you haven't passed your peak. And if you're learning, exploring, or deepening your connection with a partner, your best experiences may still be ahead. So remember, the most satisfying sex isn't about chasing a single high point on a timeline. It's about being fully present and finding meaning in whatever stage you're in. The peak isn't behind you or ahead of you. If you're still growing, the peak might never end. In this Blink to Sexual Intelligence by Marty Klein, you've learned that most people carry anxiety about whether their sex lives are normal, often shaped by cultural standards that prioritize performance and comparison over connection. But sexual satisfaction depends more on emotional presence, communication, and self-awareness than on technique or frequency. Letting go of rigid definitions of sex and desire creates space for authentic experiences. Confidence grows from self-acceptance, and fulfillment deepens with curiosity, honesty, and a willingness to define sex on your own terms. Okay, and that is it for this Blink. We really hope you enjoyed it. And if you can, please take the time to leave us a rating because we always appreciate your feedback. I'll see you in the next Blink. Bye.